Trustee Carey.
Here.
Trustee Kramer.
Here.
Trustee Jay.
Present.
Trustee Rose.
Present.
Trustee Chaplin. Oh, she's on Zoom. Hold on one moment. She's going to be joining a little bit late today, but she will be on. Trustee Cunningham.
Here.
Trustee Giannoli.
Here.
Trustee Safraza.
Here.
And Trustee Spurber.
Here. Thank you. We do have a quorum today. That takes us to item number 2, which is public comment. Do we have any public comment at this time?
No public comment.
Thank you. We move now to item 3, which is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion or discussion?
The agenda is presented.
I'll second that.
And moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will carry. This takes us to item number 5, which is our President and CEO's report. And I forgot one. I forgot the minutes. Item 4.1 are the minutes from March 10th, 2022. Are there any changes or amendments?
I will
Sir.
abstain as I was not present for the meeting.
Okay, we will note your abstention. Jessica.
Just want a correction in the minutes, and I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I think I had asked for the item 10, sorry, under item 10, just a correction that about the compensation. I asked why it wasn't placed on the agenda, and that's not what the minutes requested, that the item regarding the CEO performance review be placed on the next agenda. So I had actually done it the time before for that meeting. So the minutes, they just need to be corrected.
That sounds fine with me.
Okay,
I recall
thank
that.
you. Yeah.
Lori, can you make those adjustments for us?
Yes, sir.
With that amendment, is there a motion?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for the correction. This will take us to item number 5, which is the President and CEO's report. And we'll begin with Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Board of Trustees. It's great to see everybody here this morning. The first item of my CEO report will be our monthly safety report presented by Ted Ohm. Good morning, Ted.
Good morning.
Morning, trustees. Excuse me. Chairman Carey and CEO Griffin. Again, thanks for this opportunity. So today's tip is actually brought to us, or was suggested to me, by our noise analyst, Rick Miller. And I thought it was a good one, so here we are. Dryer lint fires, roughly 16,000 of them a year. A lot of money spent on them. 92% of them are the actual dryer, not the washer. That little dryer screen you pull out and clean, it's only about 75% efficient. So this is kind of the difference. That stuff builds up in there. And if you remember from a couple months ago when I talked about being prepared, if you're out in the wilds of Nevada, carry a little bag of dryer lint because it makes a great fire starter. Well, here we are today. It makes a great fire starter. So there's a gentleman here running around town that does this. That's all he does is clean dryer vents. My understanding, he does a pretty good job. So it reduces your energy costs, prolongs the life of your equipment, and your clothes dry faster. So that's pretty much it for today. I know you guys have a full agenda, and I appreciate this. Any questions? Thanks.
Short and sweet. Thank you very much, Ted. Even my simple brain can wrap my head around that. So, okay, a few items for me this morning. Again, I want to acknowledge some wins from the past week, and it starts with the launch of the More R&O program last Wednesday. Thank you to those trustees who were here and the staff. A phenomenal effort to take a group of stakeholders and influencers around the airport and tour them, show them what our future looks like here. It was a big logistical effort and a huge success in every measure of the word. The media coverage was outstanding, continues to be outstanding on social media. So we got what we wanted there, which is to put our stake in the ground and proceed forward with the many capital improvements that this airport will undertake in the next 5 to 8 years. Also, a significant win was the grand opening of Chuy's Mexican Kitchen. Pre-Security, formerly the Diner. It's just great to see a restaurant open and operating there again for the first time since really pre-pandemic. It's even better that it is a local concept that is well known in our region with local ownership. Chewy is a great addition to the airport community. I've had many conversations with him already, and just a great guy, and very much committed to the success of that pre-security location, and early returns are that it's doing good so far. By means of a passenger update, we continue to be in the upper echelons of airport recovery. Our March total passengers was down 3.7% compared to March of 2019. So on most weeks, we are within 5% of 2019. Some weeks we are above, some weeks we're below. The biggest constraint at this point now are seats in the market. And we were down, I think, 8% on seats compared to March of 19. This month, it's double-digit reduction, and this is a trend we see continuing and increasing as the year unfolds. And the airlines are reducing capacity for several reasons. First and foremost are their own labor shortages. There have been some very high-profile struggles with airline operations. With a little bit of weather or a little bit of congestion, they start to break down because they have really limited staffing above and below the wing. So they are pulling back capacity, and this is system-wide, and that includes seats in our market. The price of Jet A, just like we're paying more for auto gas, Jet A has almost doubled what it would normally be this time of year. That is increasing airfares, and you can see increasing airfares across the system. All of these things lead to usually reduced passengers. As airfares go up, discretionary spending reduces. So we are getting ready for some headwinds here. I think all of these things are likely to hopefully keep our recovery at least where it's at today and not take a backward step, but it's almost impossible to predict what's going to come in the months ahead, so we continue to just try and be nimble and versatile and be prepared for more growth or reduced passengers. It's almost impossible to predict it right now, but we do see, I think all of us see with inflation, recessionary factors, all of those hit aviation just like they hit every other sector. So we are cautiously optimistic, and I think that's all you really can be right now, but we're grateful for the recovery that we have had. It is, like I said, one of the best in the industry, and we'll see how much longer that run lasts. Either way, as we bump along at the 2019 levels, we continue to see our parking system very close to capacity many days of the week, and that is the change in consumer behavior where many people leave for longer trips now. Or they don't want to take a different form of transportation to the airport for their own personal reasons. They'd rather drive themselves. And so our team is continuing to do a great job of managing the parking capacity that we have and always making sure that people are not told no when they arrive at the airport for a place to park, even if that means parking across the street at the Sure Stay, which is, I believe, where we were at on Friday. So, and it's a Friday in April. There's no spring break. There's no holidays. So I don't know what to wish for at this point as it relates to summer. We're at the tipping point on parking, but of course we need the business, and we will hope that business continues to be strong. And then lastly, as has been reported many, many times, we've ordered police cars, and I'm happy to say they're here finally. We were wondering if we were ever actually going to get them. They are being outfitted now, and all of those things that come with emergency radios and lights and comms packages, but it's great to finally have them. It only took 9 months, which is just, I think, a status report on our supply chain issues that we continue to have, whether it's furniture for your home or police cars. It's a challenge across the board. So, Mr. Chair, that concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
Question.
Jennifer.
Thank you. In your in your CEO report, you include a page on the Porter Group. So I think it's okay to ask this question this time. The administrative report that was sent out to us, financial reporting package, there's a amendment regarding the Porter Group, which extends their base contract through June 30th. And I'm curious, will you be going out to bid? Will this board be hearing more about next steps? Explain the status on that,
Sure.
please.
Mr. Chair, I'll take that one. Thank you. Good question. So the Porter Group, their option ended January 30th. We've extended them through June. We advertised for a government affairs manager with the intent of bringing more of this effort in-house with all of the changed conditions with federal funding coming through the FAA. We did not find a candidate in that effort. Again, it continues to be an interesting job market depending on what you're looking for. The job is still funded, and there we're still continuing to have some informal conversations, so we can still fill the position. After June 30, we are going month to month with the Porter Group. We've explained that to them, our intent is to really in-house this effort if we can. And if we can't, we will advertise that opportunity if we decide it's not just, the market's not going to give us what we need. We still need resources. We need connectivity to DC, and we can go on a time and materials basis with the Porter Group, but ultimately we would have to make a contract decision. So we're kind of waiting to see, does the job market get a little bit better here? We thought with an election year and a lot of changes occurring on the Hill, there would actually be a wave of people that might be interested in a role like this and give us a good pool. We haven't seen it yet, though, so we're not going to force a bad hire. We can afford to play a bit of a waiting game here. So I suspect there will be more conversation on this, and we may have to go back out and advertise for opportunities for others to represent us in that regard, but it's too early to tell at this point.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, Adam, please.
Chair, are you talking about it bringing federal lobbying in-house to the airport authority? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
I think that it's an interesting decision.
Jessica, you have a comment?
Yeah, and actually, I thought the same thing, Trustee Kramer, until I talked to our CEO. I think we do need someone who works with the FAA, and that's the big issue, I think, is that staff at that level. So, which right now it's, I think, a hard niche to get. So I am supportive, and I'm glad, Trustee Cunningham, you asked the question about that person who can work with the FAA. We have a lot on the table, obviously, here at Reno Tahoe, and not just, even on the economic development side, with what's going on at STED, all the stuff on the airfield. So I do think if there's someone who came from the FAA, retiree, or someone, come on, Darren, you know everyone in the country, no pressure. But yeah, I think I do support looking at that role, and I think that's why we didn't have anyone applicants for the particular position. I think it's probably something hard to fill. But we talked about this too before Darren came, particularly on the grant side funding. I think we missed potentially some opportunities for grants in the past with public safety and some other things. So I do think that position is critical. It's just finding that right person probably.
Just going to add one more thing now that this spins in my brain, but I think the critical part of this is the structure of what that job is really going to do. Right. Because to Adam's point, I think on the Hill, you have to have somebody who knows people and can get in an office and talk to people, but yet that niche that Jessica mentions is critical, and particularly in the times we're going into now with all these capital projects. But I think that definition of what you're really looking for is going to be key.
Chair, can I add some
Please,
more
go right
color here? No, let's run down this rabbit hole for a second. You know, one thing we've learned about the bipartisan infrastructure law is that all of the funding for aviation comes through the FAA. It is not connected to the Hill after it's passed by Congress. And so we start with our Phoenix Airport District Office, and we put in basically our applications for aviation. It's $1 billion a year. In our category, we can compete for up to $150 million a year in discretionary funding, with a bunch of other airports all competing for that funding through the FAA, and in a committee that the FAA will convene of FAA people across the country along with some DOT. And so we know that the Porter Group or others like them can't help us very much with that we have to work through our FAA contacts, and we have no in-house horsepower to do that other than Brian, who has a full-time job. So the idea here was pivoting to kind of the game is changing, if you will, at least for the next 5 years. Not to say we don't need representation on the Hill. We still need some form of lobbying, but we spend a good chunk of money on that, and the idea here was to squeeze the balloon differently and steer more resource this direction while maintaining what we need when we do need access to the delegation or whatever. But in all frankness, they're very supportive of us competing for bill money as soon as we can, and that's about all they can do is give us moral support. And then when we have an application in, they will of course support it, but we have to do the heavy lifting at this point. So does that help clarify the idea?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you to my fellow trustees. That was actually really, this was a very helpful discussion because you understood where I was coming from. This
Yeah.
actually provides that color I needed. So thank you, everybody, for that.
Anything further on item number 6? That takes us to, I'm sorry, that was the President CEO's report. Item number 6, are there any board member reports or updates? Jessica.
And I don't know if this is the place to bring this up, but just looking at our special meeting for the 21st, just have a request if we could. I know we've kind of gone a couple rounds on this, but if we could have Mr. Chair to agendize that so we can take action on our CEO. I want to give him, I think we're all in favor of extending his contract. He's done such a good job. And I want to just make sure we have the information before next Thursday on the comp. I know you had requested the comp study nationally, and that would be helpful to have before our meeting next Thursday so we can make that decision. And I know Vice Chair Kramer, you had talked about the extension. I don't know if you can work with legal on that so it can come back to us and we're agendized to take action. But I think we've got to give, we owe it to our CEO to move this forward, to give direction for, I know it's not up till June, but to give that direction moving forward, so.
Ann, do you have any insight?
I am working on an agenda, and Trustee Sefaraza, I do want to correct one statement, which is nobody has actually taken any action or formed any opinion with respect to the extension of this contract.
Okay, I agree. I think past statements at the public meetings at the board, I think we've stated our like for our CEO. So I will clarify that, Madam Attorney.
Anything else? That will take us to item number 7, which is recognition and possible approval of board resolutions. There's none. We did have a number of consent items, 8.1. 8.4. Would anyone like to pull one of these for discussion? If not, I would accept a motion to adopt them. These were all reviewed by various committees and approved.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will carry. Thank you very much. Takes us to item 9.1, which is a board memo, and this is the Federal Aviation Administration's discussions regarding program grant offers and construction contracts. This has been through the Planning Committee, and our presenter is Mr. Jerzyk. Vice. Just been asked, it was approved by the committee. Do you wish a presentation on this? You're welcome to have one, or we can move on. Anyone need to hear this? I'll go ahead and invite a motion then for the approval of this item. It was approved by the Planning Committee.
Move to approve.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion will carry.
Thank you for being prepared.
Job.
It's a very similar item. This is work out at our STED facility, and this is also under Bryce's jurisdiction. It was reviewed and approved unanimously by the Planning and Engineering Committee. Do you wish a presentation? I would then invite a motion if you would like to make one.
I move to approve, and again, this is the construction management for the item we just approved, so people do know.
Thank you.
Second, Trustee Rose.
And moved and seconded. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will carry. Next, we move to 9.3, which is the on-call maintenance and janitorial services contract for the airport here. This was heard by the Finance Committee. Do you wish a presentation on this item? Hearing.
If I could just get
Please.
an update from the Finance Committee on this one. I mean, our janitorial crew. I don't need a presentation, but just Chair of Finance, please.
Actually, I was going to ask if I could make a comment about it, so thanks for that opening. We had a wonderful presentation by Mr. Pittman on Tuesday, and he actually took us through all of the steps of how they chose this particular vendor and all of the different analysis that they did. And it was incredibly impressive. I don't know that I've really ever taken into consideration what they go through to choose who our janitorial service is, and that while they did not choose the lowest person, I feel confident that they chose the best person with the information that they had. And if you have specific questions about it, Trustee Sfraz, I'm happy to answer those, but it was a very, 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 very detailed process.
And I just want that explanation because we didn't go with the lowest, so, but I'm comfortable, Finance vetted it, so, I mean, this is important for the airport.
We're known for our cleanliness,
Yep.
and we all know that least expensive is not always the best, and that mistake was made once in the past. And so we talked about that, and we talked about how we arrived at this decision, and I definitely feel confident. I believe all the other members of the Finance Committee, if you guys want to weigh in, also felt the same way.
Mr. J.
Thank you. I'd like to weigh in. I asked that same question myself because it was a pretty big difference. And the explanation we got from Mr. Pittman was just spot on. It was interesting that I think this was the only local bid that we received. And I think that's going to kind of be indicative going forward. I know there's a couple of construction companies out right now that they're not taking any more work on for the rest of the year. And you've got a couple other big projects. So I thought Mr. Pittman's explanation was just spot on, and thank you very much.
One other point too, we did ask because you've got a layer on in this too that you have to have these people security checked, and there's a labor shortage, and so these already they're set up to go and they're proven. So there was a lot of pieces. We did delve into it, and as the chair said, there was a lot of good questions.
Any further discussion? We go ahead and invite a motion on this then?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. One second. Adam was the first.
Adam, thank you.
Jennifer Rose was the second. And I believe we voted, so we're. Okay. Next up is 9.4. This is authorization of the CEO to negotiate and execute a land lease agreement with the Army National Guard out at our STED facility. And Mr. Adam Tennant, would you please discuss this with us?
Morning, Chair Carey and trustees. For the record, Adam Tennant, General Aviation Property Specialist, and with me today I have Colonel Clayton Chappell, who is in charge of this STED Army National Guard base up at STED, and they have a lot of exciting things going on up there. He's going to talk to you a little bit momentarily about the mission and kind of some of their upcoming projects, and why we're looking to extend their lease an additional 20 years right now, so, with no.
Good morning, Chair Carey, President Griffin, Board, trustee members. I'm Colonel Clayton Chappell with the Nevada Army National Guard. On the full-time side, I am the Installations and Environment Manager. And then in the military side, I am the commander of the 17th Sustainment Brigade in Las Vegas. I was hoping that we'd bypass and a vote would go without having a presentation, but I will do this presentation. I'd like to recognize a couple members of my staff that are here, just in case there's some additional questions to follow on this. I have Miss Jamie Ivy. She's the Designs and Project Manager and is overseeing these projects. And I also have Mr. Devin Earl, who's a real property specialist. This is the agenda, 4 items, and then at the bottom, any questions. First, let me give you a little background on the lease. We initially entered the lease in 1977, and there's been some modifications since then. And the last one was 2014, a 30-year extended lease at this property. It's approximately 110 acres, and it's set to expire in 2044. Now, you're probably wondering, well, if it's going to expire in 2044, why are we extending the lease? All right. 25-year lease rule. I know my counterpart at the Air Guard, Colonel Sean Matthews, presented about a year ago the reason behind this 25-year lease. In order for the federal, in order to get federal construction dollars, we need to have a minimum of 25 years left on the lease in order to design, construct, and use these facilities. And so that's the background behind the reason for this request. There are several facilities up at Washoe County at our STED facility, and one of them is the Readiness Center, also known as an armory. That houses roughly 1,100 soldiers on drill weekends. There's approximately 70 full-time folks that are out there. Some of the missions that are out there, some of the units that are out there is the 757 CSSB, that's a sustainment battalion. They just returned from Romania about a year and a half ago. We also have the Signal Battalion that some of their elements have been rotating through Africa, Horn of Africa. And then we also have the 991st Aviation Unit out there that has several missions throughout the year. And you see the deployments. We actually have a unit out of this facility that's going to go to Poland in a couple months. It'll be roughly a year-long mission in Poland. They're a military police unit. And we just finished up. I know it's made the news. We were helping with the COVID operations throughout the state. That just finished up. Next is our aviation facility. We have both rotary and fixed wing at that facility. We also have the airframes that we have out there are Blackhawks, the UH-60s, and we also have the Chinooks, the CH-47s, and then one fixed wing C-12 plane out there. Several missions, as I said, they deploy and redeploy, and they also do several state missions, which include the fighting the fires, and they're prepping for that again this year. So one of the big projects we have in line, and we're actually under design right now, is the $46 million Washoe County addition alteration. We're basically going to double the size of our facility out there. We've been cramming folks in there, 1,100 folks, and it's designed for roughly 400 personnel. Now we're going to expand. We finally got the funding to expand. Now, once again, I said the lease was negotiated back in 2014, extended to 30 years. It took us all the way until now to get federal approval for our project. So now we're fall within in June of 2014. Or June of 2024, we'll be within a 22-year. Well, actually, June of this year. I'm sorry. Let me back up. June of this year, we'll hit a 22-year left on our lease. So it takes a while for us to get our construction dollars, particularly on the federal side. As I said, we're going to expand. This houses a majority of the folks that are out there. It's currently under design. We start construction latter part of next year into 2024. It'll probably be about a year and a half to 2-year construction project. Follow on, we actually have design funds for our UH-60, our Blackhawk helicopters will be in the north end of the property. This is to store 3 of our Blackhawks. Rather than have them sit on the tarmac and weather away, we're going to try to protect them by sending 3 of them at least into this facility. And that's a $6.4 million project. Under design right now, construction next year as well. The last one is we just got word about a month ago, we got approval for $10.4 million for or $10.7 million for our Chinook helicopters, and the plan is to store 3 of those as well out of the weather and pull them in to do maintenance or be in operation. That design would start in 23 with construction 24 to 25. So what we're asking for is an extension. There's options for 10-year leases. We're asking for, can we get both of those extensions? So a 20-year lease extension. Fiscal impact, if we are unable to do this, as I said, there's overall a $63.1 million construction dollars that we're plan to execute here in the next 2 to 3 years and save some pretty expensive equipment by housing them in our storage facilities. And that concludes my brief. If there are any questions.
Jennifer, please.
Do you need both extensions for that 63 million, or do you just need one extension?
Right now, just to get the $63 million, is the one extension. The plans to further expand some of our operation out there, as I was noting, that it takes us a while to get those federal dollars. We'd come back and ask for another 10 years, probably, well, 10 years, less than 10 years.
Thank you.
Other questions? Jessica.
Just on the fire question, how do we coordinate with our fire department, especially with these wildfires? That's as you know, huge undertaking now, especially what we saw last. How does that work, especially on the Stead side, because we don't have a station out there?
You're talking the fires at the airport itself?
Or the surrounding, I mean, the surrounding area at Stead is wildland interface. So is there coordination there with our fire department?
There is coordination, and I know ultimately when the request comes in, it goes through Carson City and the requests come out. But yes, there are discussions and coordination that happens between the military and the fire departments.
Just a question for staff to follow up on Trustee Rose's question. Any downside, I guess, Darren, question for you, of just approving the 2 10 years today for the airport?
And just to speak to it, the downside is just that Clayton will probably have to come back to us in about 5 or 6 years whenever they start to get in that window again, because they have, about $50 million in upcoming projects kind of planned out into the future. So every time we get into that window of 25 years, we'd have to come back and do this again. So the 20 years allows us, I think it carries us all the way out until 2030, somewhere in there where we wouldn't have to do it again. I think 2039 might be slightly off on the year, but it gives us more time and allows them a longer planning horizon.
Staff's comfortable with us approving the 2 10 years?
Correct.
Perfect. Okay.
Correct me, we're agendized, I believe, for a single 20-year extension. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So that, we kind of, yes, there's no downside. They're a well-known tenant. We think they're good for it, and honestly, 10 years goes quickly, as explained by the Colonel, and these projects take many, many years to bring to fruition. We don't want to keep coming back and doing this, so we're just trying to simplify the process here. Thank you.
Question for the Colonel. It's not actually a question. I just wanted to express on behalf of the board and all of us here at the airport how proud we are of your mission and how vital you are to our state and our nation. And I don't want you to forget how proud we are that you're out there at Stead and you're always there when we need you for firefighting, floods, whatever it is. And it's just a layer of safety that we enjoy in this nation that many places don't have. So please know that we support and are very proud of your mission, sir.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chair Carey. I do appreciate that. It truly is an honor to serve this great nation, and I will make sure that Major General Barry understands the appreciation that you have for our mission and our duties out there.
I think I speak for everyone. So.
Thank you.
Any further comments by the board? Hearing none. Adam, did you have any more to add, or could I invite a motion?
I do have a couple more slides I can run through. It won't take but a minute. So again, the purpose is to extend 20 years term on their current lease, and strategic priority number 4, safety and security for the board. And then background, Colonel Chappell went over this quite well, so I'll skip through that. And there's your location of the base again. Proposed business terms, again, it would take the lease out to 2063, removes the options that are in the current lease, and then the fiscal impact is unchanged. It's $1 per year because of the unique capabilities of the Guard that they provide. And then we do derive about $50,000 annually in additional revenue from the joint use agreement. And that's it. Here's the motion. So it's hereby, or would you like me to read it?
No, it's okay.
All right, excellent.
Would the board like to move on the motion, please? So, second? It's moved and seconded to adopt the motion suggested in the staff report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Adam. Great job. Item 9.5 is a presentation today from the Reno Air Races Association concerning the 2021 Air Races report. Mr. Tony Langata and Adam Tennant will be doing our introductions.
And I'm just going to hand it right off to Tony. He's going to present on the 2021, or the results from the 2021 air races and talk about kind of where we're headed for 2022. So here he is.
Thank you, everyone. It's great to see you again. It feels like it's been forever. I think it's been since late 2019 before we actually got to be here in person. That was a much different message, I think, than what I'm going to give you today, which is a good thing, because that message was somewhat dire. We were looking at, we just had a rough year, and as we moved forward, we were concerned, and we were pretty open with kind of where we were at that point. So I'm happy to come here today and deliver a different message, which is more along the lines of, while we're not completely out of the woods yet, we have turned the corner. So we'll get more into that later. I also did want to mention that, excuse me, our CEO, Fred Telling, who lives in Florida, wanted to be here today, and he sends his regards, and unfortunately he could not make it out here this week, but he would love to have been here to do this with me. So thank you, trustees, Chair Carey, and CEO Griffin, just appreciate the time. And here we go. So first, a quick sort of introduction to our board members. There are 12 of us right now. 10 of us have been there since before 2019. I did want to call out the two newest ones. After the event in 19, Sue Gardner. Many of you probably recognize her name, but she was the former FAA Director of Special Events. She's joined the board and is a phenomenal asset. Also, the newest at the end of 2021 is Bill Freeman. He is a real estate developer, and he's also the chairman of the Nashville Airport Authority. He hasn't been able to make it out a whole lot yet because he just joined the board at the end of the year, but he's a longtime supporter, big fan, and I know he looks forward to coming out and speaking with you all and kind of getting together with the Airport Authority in the future. So 2021 highlights. Now we're just going to go into the event a little bit. So first and foremost, when we're talking about the success of our event, it's always safety. That's number one. And I'm pleased to report we had no incidents or accidents. All Maydays were resolved safely. And so number one, very successful. Military performers. We were quite blessed this last year to have the Thunderbirds, the F-35, and the Osprey on site. And in fact, on Saturday, it really saved us because the wind came in and completely canceled all racing in the afternoon. But thankfully, we had these three wonderful shows to go out there, and the crowd stayed to the end of the day. So they were great. Actually, Kristen Beowulf, the pilot for the F-35, felt like a celebrity out at our event. In fact, she lost her voice one day because so many fans were coming to talk to her and hear her experience. So we got a lot of positive feedback, and it was very well received. Attendance. So that was an interesting story last year. Our GA and reserved attendance actually ended up pretty much right on budget, like less than 1% over, which was great because we did budget fairly conservatively. However, on the premium seating areas, we completely beat budget, and it really put us over. And at the end of the day, we, on the income side, on the attendance side, we were 9% over for ticket sales. So that was really a good piece of the puzzle for us for sure. We were pleased with our attendance, especially given the Delta variant hit in the summer, and then the smoke hit later in the summer, and there was a lot of concern. I'm going to skip over to merchandise sales while I'm talking about money here, and I don't know if it was pent-up demand or what, but the merchandise sales from a percentage standpoint were the biggest number over budget. We were like 33% over our expected income on the merchandise sales. I can only say that maybe it was because nobody could buy anything in 2020, so they were all just dying to get stuff. Or maybe it was the wind that blew out all the racing, so they're out shopping while they were waiting for the Thunderbirds to perform. On the education side, so one of the things we did coming out of 19 and 20 and kind of moving forward and with budget constraints and everything is we kind of took a new approach to how we would do some of our things. So we reached out to UNR, to both the business department as well as the marketing department, and we were able to hire 3 marketing interns plus an accounting intern last year. The marketing interns provided wonderful, fresh, new, young content that, I'll just say that we didn't necessarily have previously. And even headed up the program I'll talk about in a second. And they were really wonderful assets. The accounting intern is actually on her 3rd internship with us now. And we expect her to go permanent in May. So she's been incredible. So that's been really positive, and we have 2 new marketing interns on now for this semester. And probably through the summer past the event. STEM Discovery Zone, this was a pleasant surprise. In the past, in 18 and 19, we had about 7,000 students that came out to the races to experience aviation and STEM education and kind of get inspired. Well, coming out of COVID, we just didn't know what to expect. So we kind of figured 2,500 to 3,000 maybe. Well, as it turned out, we actually had 6,000 kids out to our event this last year, just Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So it completely blew out the expectation, and it went really, really well. So we were very pleased with that. Social media influencer program. This was something we tried new last year. So we reached out to a ton, but we ended up bringing out 18 social media influencers. Those 18 influencers had a total collective following of about 5 million people. We brought them out, gave them seats, gave them a special kind of immersive experience in the event, took them out to pylons. They got to do all kinds of fun stuff. One of them even got to ride in the chase car for the U2 during the event, during that performance. And in turn, they posted their stories during the event and after the event. And at the end of the day, they ended up posting roughly 300 stories. So there's about 300 stories that got 5 million sets of eyeballs on them. So very, very positive growth. And you'll see later in our social media numbers just how much it helped. And just as a side note, the International Council of Air Shows, which occurs every December, they have their Pinnacle Awards program, which is kind of the air show industry's awards program, and we received the Platinum Award for the large civilian air shows, which is the highest award that we can receive in our industry. So very pleased and very successful program that we plan to continue this year. And then the last one was the Microsoft Flight Simulator. So this was one that actually started in early 2020 when they reached out to us and said, we're coming out with our new flight sim and we'd like to do an add-on after we release for the Reno Air Races. We said, sounds great. They wanted to release it at the end of 2020. I think maybe they kind of didn't recognize how difficult it was going to be to get all the assets, because if anybody hasn't seen it, the detail is unbelievable, right down to nicks in the paint and signatures on the planes. It's pretty amazing. So we went through 2 years with them of getting that all done, and it was released towards the end of 2021. But while it did not involve a whole lot of monetary compensation, the exposure from being involved in a Microsoft product is incredible. And I'll go into that a little bit more later as well. But that's been a huge boost to our exposure as well. So going into the marketing and PR, and I should have done 2 slides for this. But to start with the public relations, the first 2 numbers are nice, 208 million reach and 8 million publicity value. But then when you add the Microsoft numbers in, so that second part includes the first part, plus what we received just strictly from the Reno Air Race expansion PR through Microsoft, the reach jumps to 1.58 billion. When we saw this, we thought they must have added a 0 or 2 on accident, but as it turned out, it was actually accurate. So again, the sets of eyeballs that got on Reno Air Races, our region, our city, increased by 1.28 roughly billion because of the Microsoft involvement, which was what we had hoped for and why we did the project in the first place. Moving below, the live stream went very well. We would have actually hit 600,000 views, except that we had internet issues on Sunday and we couldn't put it on Facebook. But it was definitely a successful year. We also have a deal with Fox Sports programming, and the Fox Sports 2 airing has happened in September. We have more coming in the summer on Fox Sports 1. Social media, and this is what I was talking about, the 98% increase on both those numbers, on the impressions, the 8,460,000 engagements, and that is not compared to 2020, that's compared to 2019 when we had an event last. So, and that goes back to those social media influencers mostly, as far as the increase goes. So, very good year on that side of things. So, now I'm going to move towards financials. I thought I'd give you a history, sort of, today. And if you go back, you can see 2012 is the first year. And I included just the income expense and kind of where the profit ended up. And I added the insurance number. Obviously, 2011, from the tragedy from a human standpoint of 2011 was terrible. But it also came with some financial challenges as well. You can see that $2.1 million insurance policy number, the premium number, excuse me. Previous, in case you're wondering, was between $250,000 and $300,000 a year. $350,000, excuse me. So an organization that annually could hope for maybe a $250,000 profit. Prior to that, you can see that the increase is at least $350,000 in insurance premium every year since. So you see a lot of red in that top line. There was 1 year where we turned a small profit. These don't include depreciation, so if you looked up our tax returns, the numbers are actually worse. But this is the cash loss. So not to dwell on the past too much, but you can see we had a lot of challenges, which is why at the end of 2019 we came here and gave you a pretty rough overview of where we stood at that point. I'll just put it that way. So what happened then? Well, COVID hit. So coming out of that, we started selling tickets. We started moving forward. We spent 6 months of operating costs and then had to cancel. So how did we get to where we are? Because you actually see that our number's black for 2020. Well, it started with you all. You all came to the table and were willing to work with us on a rent reduction sponsorship package, which helped carry us through both 2020 and then up to our event in 2021. Helped us get through that hump. A whole number of things happened in there, and from the PPP loans to your help to an event that we did, a virtual event we did in September of 2020, to selling a hangar because the market was good, and then eventually we all sat down in November and said, okay, we've got two choices, well, three choices really. One is to limp along and see if we can make it. Another is to say, throw in the towel. And the third was a big grassroots donation campaign. Obviously, that's the route we ended up going. We ended up raising $460,000, which was close enough to our 500 goal, that we were able to replenish what had been lost in those first 6 months for the most part, and we were able to move forward with confidence into 2021. So that started with you guys helping us out with the rent and the license fee coming up to 2021. And at the end of the year, we actually came out and we had money to move forward with. So as I transition to 2021, I think you all have a few sheets of paper that kind of show some more detail about 21. I didn't put it in here because it's not quite final yet. But the bottom line is we budgeted about a $200,000 profit for 2021. We were very conservative. We actually cut over $600,000 of expense out. Now, a third of that was payroll. So we cut our staff massively, and we can't do that again. It was tough on staff for sure, but we got through. And we budgeted very conservatively on income as well. Now, the way 2021 went is actually on the expense side, we almost nailed it. I mean, we were within 1% of our expense number on the budget. And that's taking into account the fact that food was about 29% over budget on the expense side. So we had a number of other ones that we were able to cut costs on and come in under budget. So the final big number for 2021, and then I'll clarify it here in a second, was actually close to $570,000 profit at the end of the day. Like I said, merchandise was a huge profit center. Tickets went very well. When you're talking about a 9% increase and you budget $2 million, that's actually a significant amount of money. Sponsorship went fine. We were kind of right on there, and everything else came in real close or came in above. Now, my clarification of the number is the fact that part of that income was 2 rounds of PPP that got converted to grants in 2021. So that's not stuff that's going to happen again. It's, it helped us get through, and that's awesome, but, it all gets recorded into 2021. We also received a $50,000 scholarship grant from the Ray Foundation, which, due to accounting practices, has to be recorded in 21, but it will all be spent in 2022. So when you take those out, it's still a $330,000 profit compared to a normal year. So we still came in above. Now, I can move kind of from there to where we stand financially now, and actually this is as of February 28th. Reason being, we went on sale with tickets right after that, so it gets very complicated after that. Things just come and go on a day-by-day basis. So we wanted to get a kind of a clearer picture of where we're at prior to really starting our push for this year. So from a balance sheet standpoint, we basically stood at minus 157,000 assets to liabilities. And where that comes from is, so we had some loans that we took out after 19 from 2 of our board members. We had $400,000 of loans that they gave at that point. And then we also ended up getting $500,000 SBA EIDL loan as well. So while we only had to spend 150 back in 2020 to get through, we still do have the whole loan on the books, but the percentage rate is so low that as a board we decided let's run it as backup. It keeps $350,000 reserve in the bank for us for this year. And then on the sheet I gave you, it has $700,000 of loans, which is the 500 plus 2 of the 4 I just mentioned, because we had paid off $200,000 at the end of 2021. Well, I can happily tell you that we paid off the other $200,000 of the personal loans in March. So now we sit at 500 on the loan side of things. So technically, we're about square right now. So that's why I say we've turned the corner, but we needed a couple more of these really good years in order to get to the point where loan's gone and there's a reserve in the bank. 2022, we are again budgeting very conservatively, but we are also very confident. We've had made some really positive steps in this last year, and we believe that we'll be able to build on what we did last year. So right now we're budgeting about $176,000 profit, and we hope that everything comes in right, and so far, ticket sales are very positive. We're actually above where we were at this point last year, so we're very pleased with how things are going. The support seems to be really good. Our sponsors are coming in. The marketing side of things is going very well, so everything's pointing in the right direction right now. So we're very, very pleased with where we're headed right now. Event preview for 2022. So talked about our conservative budgeting, as you all know, and I heard some talking about labor and all those fun things this year. There are still a lot of challenges. There's a lot of challenges. Supply chain is actually worse, we're finding, this year than it was last year, which is kind of shocking to me, but it is. I had to order paper for our programs yesterday because if I didn't, we weren't going to have a program this year. Costs are going to be high. We don't really know exactly what's going to happen with food, but we are finding that costs are coming in significantly higher in some areas than last year. In some areas, they'll come in below, but the costs are still high. We don't have a jet team. We don't have Thunderbirds or Blue Angels this year, nor Snowbirds either. And I have a performer review next, so I won't go into that too much, but it does present a challenge. It's a huge draw, especially for the locals. Now, our opportunities and new initiatives. We are bringing some new stuff in this year. First one is more of a sponsorship opportunity. It's a rewind video series, and it's basically taking a look back at last year's event, but from a different angle. So we're going behind the scenes and doing more behind the scenes footage and interviews, and we're getting those out. What it's done is it's brought in companies like Geico, T-Mobile, Honda Generators, and Bose as possible sponsors for these events. So really making an effort to bring more national sponsors into the mix as well. Year 2 of the social media influencer program, as I mentioned earlier, it was highly successful. We hope to expand on it this year and just keep growing that reach, you know. And as that reach grows, what's great about it is with Reno in our name, this city gets exposure every time we get exposure. And this is our home, this is our community, and we just love bringing that exposure and bringing those people here. New ticketing providers probably seems like a weird thing to put on here, but a lot of our struggle last year did have to do with our ticketing platform from a staff and operational standpoint. So it was time to bring something in that was more customizable. It's been great. It's been far less draining on the staff, which is really good because we can focus on other things. And like I said, ticket sales are ahead of last year, so that's good. And the scholarship program. So I mentioned the success that we had in the STEM program for the last few years. And the next natural progression for us really was to move towards scholarships. You may have all heard that we announced it during the races this last year that we were doing our first RAH scholarship program. And it was partially due to a matching $50,000 grant from the Ray Foundation. But I'm really pleased with how it's gone. We had over 20 applicants come in, all local, regional, I should say, and all under 22, I believe. So we're looking to help some young people get their private pilot's license and get up in the air. And, you know, I keep telling people, you know, maybe one of these kids will end up racing at our event someday. But we just selected the 10. So the announcement will be coming soon. They've all been notified, and it's just really exciting to see this get off the ground. So the lineup, as always, we will have our 7 racing classes. The first 6, the Unlimited, which is the World War II era warbirds, of course. The Jet and Sport is where you're really seeing a ton of innovation. They're doing incredible things with these planes. And then our T6 and the World War II trainers, Formula 1 and biplane, and the newest one is the Stoll Drag, which is the down and back straight line drag race. And we expect really good participation from all classes this year. So lots of growth there, including in the Unlimited class, which is kind of an up and down thing every year because it's becoming so expensive to maintain those aircraft. Performers, as I mentioned, no team. However, we are incredibly pleased to have the F-22 Raptor demo for the first time since 2014. The success and the popularity of the F-35 last year has me really excited about having the F-22 back. And the F-18 Super Hornet, honestly, I look back and I couldn't find when we last had their actual demo out here. We had a legacy flight, but I could not find where they did their full demo. So having those two here is really good on the military side. We're very excited about it. The one kind of point to make is from the performer standpoint, they're really important, especially to our local crowd, but the people that come from out of town, which is 65-70% of our crowd, they're coming to see the races. So that's the thing that sometimes we overlook and forget, is that those people are still coming to town to spend their money here because they're here to see the races. And then, of course, we have Jim Pites, and a Game Bird is a little aerobatic aircraft. This is the video, and were we able to do sound or no? Okay. Which button do I hit? Oh, it's going. Sorry, there's wonderful audio with this, I promise. Just can't hear it. Oh, wait, there it is.
You need to be here! You gotta be here!
That is just our little 30-second promo video. It aired first on the Fox Sports programming, and we'll be using it throughout the year to air again through the summer. That's all I have for today, unless you all have any questions, but I thank you so much for your time and for your support over the years. We just couldn't have done it. We wouldn't be here without you. So thank you.
Questions from the trustees? Jennifer Cunningham.
Thank you. Thanks for that great presentation and for the transparency with your numbers. I don't know if you've shared them with the airport in the past, but it's the first time I've had the opportunity to see exactly what you're doing. The use of the social media influencers, I think that's such a great idea, and I'm glad to see that they're back. I'm curious if you've thought about using them when they're here, maybe gathering them for a focus group, to whatever you can do to grow that base, and lower the demographic, the age demographic, I think is a really important thing. It's nice to see that you and the leadership team over there are embracing that, but whatever you can do to continue that, I think will be necessary and really important for growing the event. But great job. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. And that's a great point. I've written it down. Doing a focus group with them is a fantastic idea. That's one thing we didn't do last year. So as we do the program this year, we'll look at adding that to it. And thank you very much.
Trustee Jay, you had a comment?
Great presentation, Tony, as usual. Kind of bummer that no Thunderbirds or Blue Angels this year. Is there anybody else we can reach out, like the Snowbirds or
Snows? We will continue to reach out to, actually.
Okay.
The problem is they have a celebration up there every year on our weekend, so we lose out every year. Last year we actually got a call from them maybe 2 months before saying, hey, if we could make it, would you guys make room for us? And then we kind of went, oh, yeah, of course we will. It didn't end up working out. They ended up choosing a small show up in Canada instead, just to keep everything national.
Or bigger.
Exactly. Oh, much. But they just, the higher ups decided to keep everything more local for them.
They're just so exciting, and I know it's not just them. It's the airport, the air races overall. But if we could get somebody here, that would just.
Oh, absolutely. And we keep reaching out, and we actually stay in contact with them because they're the one that could make a change later on. It's not likely that the Thunderbirds or the Blues will make a change later on. Well, actually, the Blue Angels will be down in Minden 2 weeks after us. So, it's not likely either of those will make a change, but it is possible the Snows could. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thank you. Anybody else?
Any other questions? Tony? Jessica, please.
I was just going to say, good job. And the scholarship thing, how cool is that? We're trying to get people into aviation, and what a great way to do it. So just kudos to you and your team. And just since I just think you've done a great job for the organization. So I'm sure we'll see you over at RSCBA too. So thank you.
Welcome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Anyone else? Tony, congratulations on your success. We look forward to your show this year. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you all so much.
Before we go to the next item, I've just been asked to read into the record that Trustee Chaplin joined us at 9:10, and I just needed to add that to the record. So the next item is item 9.6, which is a presentation of airport fire dispatch transition. Mr. Jensen and Mr. Carnes.
Good morning. Excuse me. I'll lose my voice. Chair Carey, CEO Griffin, members of the board, Chris Jensen, for the record, Chief Operations and Public Safety Officer, Dale Carnes, Chief of Airport Fire. We're before you today to talk a little bit about the PSAP transition, or Public Safety Answering Point. You probably recall back in November of last year, we came before you and presented the Ross and Barozzini study to the board, and you might also recall that there were 54 recommendations in that report. One of those recommendations is that we consider transitioning our dispatch services of emergency response to a public safety answering point, or PSAP. And so we've been working through those recommendations, and of course that was a high priority for us, and so we've been working through that process. And so what you'll see is the timeline of events related to that recommendation. In December of last year, we sent out formal invitations to local agencies that would be able to respond to it. So that was the City of Reno, Washoe County, City of Sparks, and RIMSA. They all responded in writing. Washoe County, City of Reno, and RIMSA all were interested and participated. The City of Sparks chose not to participate. In January and February of this year, the staff, the operations and public safety staff, gathered to interview the 3 parties that were interested. I should mention that included all members of the operations and public safety staff, not just fire and police. In February of 22, we narrowed the list down to the City of Reno and Washoe County and conducted a second interview. And then as a result of that second interview, the staff recommended that we move forward with the City of Reno. So just a little bit about the decision-making process. This was a complicated issue, and there was a lot of detail that we as a staff had to go through. But some of the highlights and the things that I think are important to note are that, number one, the City of Reno and Washoe County were both very competitive. In fact, in most ways, it was apples to apples. They use the same CAD system. They operate out of the same dispatch center. They have a lot of the same protocols and procedures. And so we were very comfortable that both were more than capable of providing the service. So one of the differentiators was the fact that the City of Reno's offer to provide the service was for $97,383 versus the Washoe County offer of $200,000, a substantial difference, obviously. Another differentiator that we considered was that our surrounding mutual aid agency that we deal with primarily is the City of Reno, if you think about the jurisdiction that surrounds the airport. And so when we have responses on the airport, it's likely that it will be a City of Reno response versus a Truckee Meadows or City of Sparks or Washoe County. We decided to transit. So one of the other things that we want to highlight is, as I mentioned earlier, it's a complicated process. There's a lot of moving parts to this, and so we discussed how we might walk through that, and we determined that it would be simpler to start with fire. They have far less calls on an annual basis. Their calls tend to be fairly alike, whether it's a medical response or an alert, an aircraft incident type response, versus the police, where we have literally thousands of calls on an annual basis, somewhere in the neighborhood of 7,000 to be exact, and they're varied calls. There's a lot of different types of events that they respond to. And so we wanted to dip our toe in the water, if you will, to get the process right, and then we'll reevaluate the police transition at a later date. So with that in mind, we're actually proposing just a one-year contract. It does have a 60-day exit clause, and we actually have just recently changed that. It's now a 30-day exit clause. And one other item of note that we wanted to share with you is that you may be aware in the past that we've always had for an emergency number, and this goes back 30 plus years from my time here long ago, that for an emergency response, we told people to call 328-6999. It's not a number that's committed to memory for most people. We've been told since we were little kids, 911, right? And so what happened is generally people still call 911. So we kind of just recognize that fact. And so we're going to use this process as an opportunity to also move to 911. And so with that, just kind of wanted to share the next steps in the process. Right now, we're completing the negotiation of the interlocal agreement with the City of Reno. We're working to procure all of the technology, because there is some that's going to be required to make this happen. So station alerting, crash phone. So when we have an aircraft incident, the tower picks up a crash phone. It rings down to the responding agencies, which includes our fire department, AirCom. It'll now be the City of Reno ECOM Center. We're looking at mobile data terminals, so our officers and fire response will have updates of what's happening, what units are responding. We're also working to make sure that we have smooth and seamless response of all of the other teams, all the other ops and public safety teams that would respond to an incident. So airport operations, airport security, airport police, airport maintenance, they all play a role in the response to an incident. And so we have to make sure we have a seamless coordination between fire and Reno ECOM and all of those other departments and agencies that might respond to an incident out here. And then finally, we're hoping and targeting the end of May to make the ultimate transition of fire over to Reno ECOM. So with that, we have Chief Carnes here. Both of us are happy to answer any questions you might have or talk about in more detail any of the steps that we're taking to this point.
I'm just going to take just 1 second here. Jessica, you needed to make an announcement, please.
Yeah, I just need to make a disclosure, and I would have done it maybe in the future in presentations if we could just get a report. I do represent REMSA, so I need to put that on the record, and I understand that they bid on this. We're not taking any action on accepting any kind of contract today. It's just an item for presentation, but I do, in my private capacity, have a financial relationship with them, and I need to disclose for the record. And I've sought guidance from legal, and since we're not taking action, don't need to recuse.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Chief Carnes if you could just discuss what this means from your perspective as the chief. Where are you at? Where are the resources at? And where are we going?
Well, for us, I mean, to sum it up, it's a huge increase in our operational efficiency and continuity. As an airport fire department, it is very rare for us to handle any major incident here without a considerable deployment of mutual aid resources. And what this will mean for us is that those resources and our localized resources will be dispatched or deployed simultaneously. And so right off the get-go, our resources, their resources will be coming at the same time. That shortens response times, which exponentially increases the survivability rate of any victims involved, regardless of what the emergency is. It also equates to a reduction in potential property loss for us and our tenants, which is huge. It also really increases our incident command or incident management capabilities, because immediately, again, all resources will start out on the same command frequency. They will then roll to the same tactical frequency simultaneously. Whether it's our chief officers or their chief officers, incident command will be established, again, simultaneously, not ad hoc as units start to arrive. So it is a huge step forward for us and as well as our surrounding community.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? Jessica?
Yeah, I have several questions on this. And I did bring this up at the last meeting because there's big discussions happening on regionalization in this area. And we are not present at the JAC meeting. There was a JAC meeting yesterday, and I did bring this up with you, Darren, last meeting. We really need to be at those meetings because these regional discussions are going on. And I just want to make sure that the airport is at the table on those. I don't want to be, as in attendance at the Board of Health meeting last month. The airport was brought up there. They're looking at potentially a regional dispatching system, which would be awesome for the entire region to finally be on everyone on the same CAD to CAD, the same system. It's probably long overdue, but this whole issue of regionalization of fire service, medical dispatch, I just want to make sure we're a huge partner in the area, that we are in those conversations now. So Chris, I don't know who from the airport team is going to be there, but we've missed a few of those meetings, and I just want to make sure that we're represented at the table.
Understood and agree. We've had some conversations. We're actually having a meeting with Dale and Darren and myself and Mike Brown in the near future to kind of strategize about our role in that. But I think part of the PSAP transition is the community starting to recognize that we are relevant, that we are a part of the conversation, and so we do want to engage, and we will absolutely do that. So thank you for that.
Other comments by trustees?
I do want to hear from the chief too, if I could, on this, just because I know, Chief, the other chiefs too, I've seen them, and be great to, again, we're on the map. So I think this is a really good discussion. No one was paying attention to, the airport before, and I think these conversations are ripe for that.
Well, as far as representation in the meetings, I haven't formally been invited to any of those meetings yet.
Okay.
But I can tell you that
Okay.
I've been involved in background conversations behind the scenes with all the surrounding chiefs, both chiefs of department and the operations chiefs with those agencies. I can tell you that you're right. Everybody is watching what we're doing here as a fire department. We are definitely on people's radar screens. And with what we're doing with this move, this really demonstrating our willingness to be part of the greater fire and rescue community here in this county. And it really, I think, positions the airport on a moral and professional high ground, because we're demonstrating our willingness and ability to work with our mutual aid agencies on a high level. And we're kind of setting the example for how things should be. We're kind of casting that mold. And within the fire community, it's really caused a very positive stir. There's a lot of excitement and positive energy to see us come to the table. So we are involved. We do need to be more involved, but we're making sure that when we do get our seat at the table, that they'll want us to be there.
Yeah, and I apologize. Sorry for the disconnect, because I thought we were invited to those, and so I'll have to sound the alarm and make sure we
I'm
are.
sure the
Chief.
memo just got lost.
And I just to bring up that point with Tahoe and the fires last year, I mean, I think that really put us in the spotlight. And kudos to you guys in the department for all that. So great job. And then just one more comment, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank our firefighters, because this was brought up, I don't know how long it's been now, 4 years ago, about this system with dispatch to this board, and the concerns from you all. And we're finally at this point, and I just want to give credit to you guys for bringing that to our attention. I mean, having them not call 911. I mean, it was a big public safety issue. So just want to thank them and our CEO and our whole team, Chief, you, Chris, for getting this going, because this is a safety issue, and I'm happy to see that we're moving forward in the right direction. So thank you.
Adam?
A question for Chris, just it's a little tangential, but how many emergency calls do we get a day on average?
Well, so just overall, it's probably in the neighborhood of 5. Of the 5, the vast majority would be law enforcement, in the neighborhood of 7,000 a year or something like that. But the term, what we call an emergency is a little bit fuzzy, I would say. Fire, on average, I think last year had about 300 total emergency calls. And again, they vary from aircraft incidents to vehicle incidents to medical emergencies. And so there's a lot that's kind of in that pot of what are total emergency response. Some are just standbys or. Yeah, I think on average, and this is just an anecdotal number that I've heard. I haven't actually gone to verify the numbers, but in talking to our aircom staff as we were kind of working through some of this process, that's what I was told is they, on average, would have. So police will have a lot of different responses that are not technically emergencies, but actual respond, and they respond to medicals just like fire does. So a lot of these will see both departments, or actually more than the 2 departments. It'll be operations, it'll be fire, it'll be police, it may be security. So we'll have a lot of departments that are all responding to the same types of incidents or events. Or police.
Trustee
No, I'm
Rose?
sorry, that's just a police number.
Trustee Rose, can you use your microphone, please?
But 5 of those are actual emergency calls.
Yeah, on average,
as
they're calling them,
opposed to
some
just
kind of out of the routine.
routine. Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
That was the clarification I was looking for. Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions, please. Jennifer Cunningham.
This is a very exciting evolution, I think, and I'm sure there was a lot of behind-the-scenes work that went into it. With the 30-day exit clause, should things not go as you guys want, is that realistic? I mean, that seems pretty ambitious.
So there was a lot of discussion about that. I think there was a concern that if for whatever reason this didn't go right, that we would have to pivot quickly, and so we wanted to make sure we had that ability. I don't believe in any circumstance that will be necessary. So that's one of those things that, there's protection for the city of Reno, there's protection for us. The nice thing is if for whatever reason the city of Reno decided this wasn't going to work for them, we do have AirCom here. They're already functioning in that role today. They have experience with it. So I think we can pivot back if needed. I also think that, the city of Reno is invested in this and they're putting a lot of time and energy in it. And so neither one of us have any desire to exercise that clause. It's more just making sure that we had the legal language in there as a protection for both of us.
Anything else from the trustees? Any last comments?
Thank you for supporting us. This has been a long and complicated road, but we're happy to be on it. So thank you for all your support.
Thank you. This will take us to item 9.7, which is recognition of a new RTA Fire Battalion Chiefs Bargaining Unit, and Julie Blevins will be leading our discussion.
Good morning, Chair Carey, CEO Griffin, members of the board. For the record, Julie Blevins, Manager of Labor Relations and Benefits. And as you all may have witnessed at our March board meeting, we welcomed our new fire battalion chiefs who officially started on March 7th. And we do have, are they still here? Yeah, we do have, we do have a few of them here in the audience today. But during their hiring process, we worked carefully to determine their wages and benefits, is because we knew we would most likely be negotiating a collective bargaining agreement with them, because although they are new positions here at the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority, these positions are covered by a collective bargaining agreement in every jurisdiction in Nevada. So as was anticipated, we did receive notification from them of their desire to form a bargaining unit here at the RTAA. And they also designated the International Association of Firefighters, Local 731, as their bargaining representative. And this is the same union that currently represents our firefighters, engineers, and captains. As required under Nevada statute, this request to form a new bargaining unit is now being brought to you for formal recognition. And then this will authorize CEO Griffin to begin the process of negotiating a new collective bargaining agreement. This agreement will then be brought to you at a future public board meeting for your for us requesting your approval. The fiscal impact on this will be determined and brought to you for approval once we do have that new collective bargaining agreement, tentative agreement. Staff is recommending that the board recognize the fire battalion chiefs as a new bargaining unit here at the RTAA and authorize CEO Griffin to begin negotiations. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Are there questions? Jessica.
Just a question, Julie. On the process of recognition, when did they vote to be recognized, and how? We had this with the police too. Just take me through the process.
Sure. They actually couldn't request formal recognition until they were actually an employee here of the airport. So that was March 7th, and that was the date that they provided us with. And it's like a formal signature sheet of them requesting to form the Fire Battalion Chief Bargaining Unit.
Okay, and so then by statute, we are required at this board to recognize it?
That's what we are bringing before you, yes.
Okay, so I didn't know it required board approval. I thought they could just organize, so, okay.
All set? Are there other questions? Hearing none, I'd invite us to take action on this item.
Approve.
I have a motion for approval. Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. We're on item number 10. This is board member comments, questions, and requests for future agenda items. Would any member like to use this item? Trustee Gianelli.
I just have a question, about the upcoming meetings. I jumped ahead.
Go ahead. Any other comments by board members?
I just want to make sure, and I don't know from legal, because I'd mentioned it before for the special meeting next week, that we have that open agenda and we get that information, Mr. Chair, that you had requested. I think that'll be helpful to have before the meeting next week. On the compensation, review, I don't know, Mr. Harvey, if you've completed that, if we could get that sent to us, just so we have that information beforehand.
Mr. Harvey, could you just come up and tell us the path you're on and reassure us all we're going to have the right information to start the process?
Chair, for the record, Larry Harvey, Chief People Officer. Yes, we have been working on that diligently ever since the request came in. In the meantime, we were able to get another survey that was even more recent, so we have made it even, I think, more rich. So you're going to get a lot of information. So we're just doing a little checking with a couple of the airports at this point in time, but I'm going to have it ready by Friday, so it would go out before. You'll have it plenty of time for the meeting.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for requesting that information.
Gotcha. Adam?
I'd like to jump on Trustee Sproul's comments and thank you, Mr. Chair, for bringing this item forward. I think that this is really important for the future of this organization to bring stability with our CEO, and I want to thank you very much as you really helped lead a lot on this, so thank you.
Sweat, thank you. All right. Any other comments from board members at this time?
Can I just get clarification? So at the special meeting, what's the goal of the outcome? Are we actually taking action? Are we just getting all the information?
You know, I don't have a prediction on that. I think it'll be the first time any of us have seen this information on Friday. So
Okay.
we'll work together and see where we're at on this particular information. I imagine there's going to be a number of things that the board is going to want to look further into. I don't want to go too far into that, but it is not a walk in, sit down, walk out. It's a starting point, and we've made some assumptions based upon what Adam spoke to, and I've had a chance to talk to Darren and Larry about some of the things we could assemble. So it's a starting point, and that's really our intention. We do need to do it as an entire board, and we'll pick a path forward that we'll do that together. So.
Okay, so I just am trying to make sure that I personally come prepared. So we may vote or we may not vote. It can go either way. Am I understanding correctly?
Is it a
We're going to agendize it so that you can, depending on how the discussion goes, you've got a lot of
It's an either or.
flexibility. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. We'll look forward to seeing that agenda and moving forward to start our process there. Anything else under this item? Seeing none, we'll move to item 11. These are your upcoming RTAA meetings, which do lie ahead for us. Any discussion on those?
I just have a quick question on the 426 meeting, what that is.
Okay.
That one I came.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
that? The Nevada Unified Certified Program.
These are meetings that Faith in the Planning Department has requested that they be put on the agenda.
Okay.
I was just going to be out of town, and I wanted to make sure that that I knew what I was missing.
I'm looking forward to knowing what you're missing too. Darren, did you want to comment on that one?
I have no idea what that is, so
Cool.
I will look into that.
What are they?
Great. All in favor say aye.
Maybe I missed the memo.
Okay.
Me too.
I appreciate that. Adam, please.
Is there any more detail on the trustees retreat? And I apologize, I have that time blocked for 4:29. I blocked the whole day. I don't know how long we're planning on, or if there's an agenda set yet for that.
Mr. Chair, sure. I appreciate you blocking the whole day. I think we're going to be starting at 8:30 when we'll do our budget workshop, annual budget workshop. Staff will take the board through kind of the draft budget and what you can expect to see in May for approval. We've got then presentations on the concourse redevelopment project and where we're at on the alternatives. We will hear from Mike Kazmierski with sort of what's the latest and greatest on the regional economy, inflation, and everything that's happening there. We're going to do an air service update, just so the board's got the latest and greatest there. After lunch, we're going to have a presentation on advanced air mobility and what we should be thinking about as it relates to air taxi and everything in our future in that regard. I will say we're likely to conclude by mid-afternoon, and then we have a social hour planned for board members. But I would say by 2 or 3 o'clock we'll be winding down. Nothing too heavy, just some good topical information. We are still considering whether we have enough to talk about as it relates to our search for an HQ and a new police station. Efforts are continuing there. If I have some good material for you all, I will have it that afternoon as well. So we're just about to lock in the agenda, and then we will get it out to the board members as soon as we have that firmed up. We'll also talk about an update to our strategic plan, which will come in the next fiscal year, and taking your temperature on what you're looking for there as well. So nothing too heavy, but a bunch of different items there. So that's just kind of off the top of my head what's on the agenda, but the lock is coming soon and you'll see it in writing.
Not gonna be, is it an all day or?
Till mid-afternoon, so 8:30 to 2 or 3 is what you can expect. The important stuff in the morning. If we need to accelerate or shorten, please give me that feedback. We're pretty adaptable here. It's local.
Had a lot of meetings lately.
I know, and you're meeting every week at this point, and I
Yeah.
apologize for that. It's the hardest working board in Northern Nevada. Well, I take that back, but they're working hard here. I take that back, Mr. Vice Chair.
Any other discussion on this one? Hearing none, we'll move on to public comment. Is there any public comment?
No public comment.
And we are adjourned. Thank you.
It's a job.
Okay, I know it's not the hardest.
Well, thanks to you.
Wow. I thought this had run till noon.
I apologize. I'm trying to be sensitive.
That's why I asked you about the presentation.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Folks, I gotta go.